can start. Okay. So the first part of the reading that I covered was the increased effectiveness in finding books, journals, and scholarly articles. And so there's two ways that you can do this. First is through Google Scholar, and the second way is through the school library website. I have been an avid fan of Google Scholar for forever, but realized it was a little bit limited because you can't always read the whole article, the whole journal, because it's locked by password. And so that's where the school library website is a lot better, because you already have a login, you have access to everything, and you don't have to worry about being held up trying to log in and pay for things. So yeah, Google Scholar and the school website, but the school website's definitely better. And then the other thing that I found that helped increase effectiveness in finding them was the Boolean operators. And those are the use of the words and or not when you search things. So each one of these three things corresponds to a different way of either narrowing your search or allowing you to find things more effectively. So for example, if you use the word not in your search, it'll filter out anything that might be similar to it, similar enough that it would generally show up, but not as spot on as you would like it to be. Or if you used and, it would show up with the two topics that are in the same article rather than just one of them or the other. Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing that it talks about is plagiarism, and that's regarding using somebody else's words as your own, and you're representing or you're presenting their voice and not giving them credit for all the details. So this would include copying somebody else's words, paraphrasing or summarizing without citing the source, quoting somebody inaccurately, or restating without using the source or citing a wrong source. And so there's a lot of different forms and versions of plagiarism, so you have to be really careful to not claim somebody else's words. But text is not the only form of plagiarism. You can also plagiarize images, you can plagiarize graphics, charts, drawings, videos, music. And so there's a lot of different things that you have to be constantly citing and giving credit where it's due. And so BYU Hawaii has some rules in tech, and so different professors will give you zeros if you plagiarize any work. There's different ways that they can check you, and you can also be reported to Honor Code if you're caught plagiarizing, because it's a form of cheating. And so you have to be constantly citing the source. And citing the source can be really easy if you're using a scholarly article, especially on the BYU Hawaii page, because there's a button that says cite, and then you press that and it will turn that article into APA format, which we use, and then you can copy and paste that into your Works Cited or your bibliography. And a lot of different resources have that option where you can just copy and paste the citation format into your paper. There's also in-text citations that you need to be doing as well throughout the text of your paper or whatever you're writing. And so that includes the author's last name and the year of publication, and you're putting that in parentheses. And you have to do that throughout your paper wherever you are placing their words. However, you don't need to be citing in your own words, your own ideas, your own charts. That doesn't need to be cited because it is your own original thoughts.
So I checked, and Purdue OWL has a plagiarism checker, but I think it's a source. But Grammarly has a plagiarism checker for free, and you can upload your whole paper there. And it's probably a lot easier than trying to figure out how to get the school's one to work, because I think you have to be like a TA to use it. But I just wanted to add.
Yeah, also Grammarly is, the school has, I think, an agreement with Grammarly that all students are able to use it for free. So yeah. So for my part is about the tips and tricks for better citing or looking for sources. There is one thing that's called truncation. Like, for example, you are looking for articles with like ARCH, the words that starts with ARCH. You can type that in and then put an asterisk on it. And all the articles with words that starts with ARCH, like archaeology, architect, it will all show there. And then the next one would be using quotation marks. So if we're looking for specific words, specific phrases, you can just type the whole thing. Like, for example, you're looking for BYU Hawaii history. You can just type it in and put in the quotation marks, and it will show you all the articles that are written about the history of BYU Hawaii. Another thing that we can use for citing sources for references is bibliography.com. It is free, and it is using the current ones. So yeah.
Nice. All right. And so just with organizing our references, just keeping in mind that because there has been a recent change to APA from APA 6 to APA 7, I mean, it's not like we've all used APA like for, you know, heaps and heaps of times in our college career, but just knowing kind of the differences between those two. And so like because academic journals especially, they kind of, scholars kind of look at that a little bit more, they pay more attention to that, I should say. Just being especially careful when we're referencing our scholarly journals, academic journals, things like that. Something also that I'll just point out is just paying attention to the little things like indentations, italicizing, you know, the websites that are used at certain points, things like that. And then one that got me last semester with cultural psychology, I got busted for it, was using like non-standard punctuation or spelling. And so, for example, I was using philosophia, and so it was spelled like capital PHILO, lowercase SOPHIA. And so making sure that we keep those irregularities in spelling exactly the same. I got doc points for that last semester. But I think for the most part, we all know just to be careful when it comes to our references, and that professors actually look at things like that.
Just to add something onto what you said, Tyrone, Grammarly is really helpful in the sense that it helps you be consistent. So like, say, especially with like in-text citations, if you were using like the little, I don't know what they call the apostrophe, sorry, I don't know what they called it. That's what they're called, right? Say you use like the curly ones or the straight ones, like that does matter when you're writing official papers. And so Grammarly will say like, do you want them all to be curly or do you want them to all be straight? And this is very helpful for me as someone that doesn't come from the American school system and spells things very differently and like does things differently, because it helps keep me consistent. So that's quite helpful.
Another thing I wanted to add on, I missed my chance when Anna finished, but with researching and searching for resources, I'm sure that somebody somewhere, I don't know if it'll be Brother Mo out here, somebody who sees me say, who hears me say this is gonna gasp, but using Wikipedia not as a source, but because Wikipedia is formatted like a research paper, you can go down to the bottom and get all their sources. Now, they won't always be scholarly articles, but they can lead to them because they have to cite them, and otherwise Wikipedia won't, like, if it's unsourced information, Wikipedia will flag it. And so when they source it, you can go to their sources and use their sources, or you can use the topic headers from their sources to find scholarly articles and peer-reviewed papers for those sources and for those topics.
I think the tutorial has a name for that. It's like backwarding. I usually do that when I see articles. I like going back to their main source and just reading it myself, because I think I can get more from there or forwarding
And
as well.
it's a lot
Yeah.
easier.
And you know, sometimes professors like more than 20 references, so that's really helpful. And for me, in my background in the Philippines, for us, researching is like typing it on Google, copying it, pasting it, not really thinking about who wrote it or whatnot. So it's really a different thing to do for me here. So it's very helpful to know all these things.